What's going on, y'all? It is the thick of the NFL season. It's time for Marvel Snap NFL Comps featuring Bynx. I feel like this one was pretty easy to see coming. This is like a very straightforward one-to-one comparison. JJ McCarthy, a.k.a. quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, the worst quarterback in the NFL to the degree that anytime any other quarterback has a bad start, they are photoshopped into this picture of JJ McCarthy because he is the bar for what bad even is. In much the same way, Zombie Galacti burst onto the scene, setting the bar for what bad is in Marvel Snap. That is what Zombie Galacti is. That is what JJ McCarthy is. The fundamental contention here is that everything new that is ass will be compared to these things. And I think that is exactly where I want to start. You can take this either way you want. You could have another proposal for JJ or another proposal for Zombie Galacti.
Well, I want to talk about this one a little bit more.
Okay.
I really like this comparison because it's like it is kind of right. Like it's this like new thing that pops up.
Yeah.
And like I feel like it's supposed to be like this big exciting thing, and I feel like JJ McCarthy was the kind of the same way, where like he hadn't really done anything. You know, I was at the game. I was at the game where he beat the Bears. He had that cool fourth quarter comeback. He did pretty well. I can't lie about that. And then he got injured and then came back, and it's just terrible. So kind of had this like pop, and then like giving yourself a nickname when you've done nothing is, you just can't do it. It's really so bad. Unless you like become Patrick Mahomes, like it's gonna follow you forever. And yeah, man, it's just a great comparison. Just not not great at all.
Yeah, new on the scene and setting the bar for any future bad quarterback. JJ McCarthy, the modern Jamarcus Russell, is really the comp here. He has been abysmal. And then, of course, we're recording this on a Sunday. Today, his backup started and was worse, which is insane because you just don't think that's possible. The best quarterback to play for the Vikings this year was Carson Wentz, who was injured and terrible. Like you just like, this is a really sort of all-time. I mean, you're a Bears fan, right? You're used to bad quarterback play. You've seen this.
I'm an expert in it.
But this is like, even for a Bears fan, you probably look over there and you're like, jeez, that's hard to watch.
I mean, you have Justin Jefferson on your team, right? Like you have so much talent that you can throw to. Like their offensive line it's not great, but it can still work. Like, I don't know. He was in a good position. They went 14-3 last year, right? Like this is a 14-3 team who he comes in and jumps on and it's just, just trash. I mean, I think, in that same realm, and this is gonna be a little bit different, more of vibes based. I'm gonna keep JJ McCarthy, and I'm just gonna keep on the ass train. I'm gonna say Warpath. So if you want to pop up Warpath, I feel like he has a bit of a vibe, at least to JJ McCarthy in the same kind of way. Because I was looking through the collection, I'm like, what are some, not great cards, but like Warpath looks like big and scary and huge, and especially in some of the variants, he kind of like takes on it. He almost is doing the same face, if you can see, between this variant and what you're seeing there in that picture.
Yeah.
And then even it comes out on the field usually, and it's big, right? It's a 410, which it's very hard to get in Marvel Snap outside of using this piece of garbage. But it just comes in, it's intimidating, and then it looks pretty good at first, and then just falters and drops right on his face.
I think that's a good comparison. I also think it's a good comparison on the grounds of like Warpath has like a really cool name. And it's like, this is sick. This is so cool. And then like the actual product does not match up to any of that. I also think it matters because Warpath was like kind of good in JV, which is Series 1, Series 2. And JJ McCarthy, national champion, 15-0. Didn't ask him to do a damn thing. Was just kind of along for the ride in much the same way as Warpath is along for the ride in those Series 1 ongoing decks.
All right, for my first comparison that I am bringing to the table, I am bringing Red Guardian and Charles Tillman. So I'm a huge Bears fan. I've been a Bears fan for a long time, and Charles Tillman is my favorite player in history. He was part of a really defensive-oriented Bears, and he is just an absolute monster in forced fumbles. He's right up there of the top all-time in overall turnovers between forced fumbles and interceptions. For forced fumbles specifically, is like the only one out there who's not like a defensive lineman or a defensive end. So I love Charles Tillman, and Charles Tillman does something that's really explosive on the battlefield or on the field, and he goes after and he makes a big turnover and makes a big impact. And there's no better comparison than Red Guardian. So Red Guardian not only has a signature overhand punch that he does to deliver a huge hit to your opponent's side, but this is a sneaky card. It's one of those cards, especially nowadays, you don't think about as much when you're going, much like you wouldn't think that a quarterback or a defensive back is going to be the one who's going to be trying to knock the ball out. So this is my big comparison here. Peanut Tillman, the Bears legend, and Red Guardian.
I'm going to go the exact same way here with the comp. I just think Rogue is a better turnover comp here, right? We're talking about a change of possession. I don't think you can do it better than Rogue. I think Red Guardian is better suited for like a more generalist kind of DB. Like if you wanted me to say who Red Guardian was, I'd say Ed Reed. You know what I mean? I would say someone hitter. Like that. This feels like such a specialized role. This is something only this guy could do. This is something where the move is named after him. And I think that makes him more Rogue than Red Guardian to me because of the specificity of what he's bringing to a deck, to a metagame, and to the football field.
You know, I really love this comparison. I feel like both of us have really good points here, and I think that both can be looked at from different lenses as we.
You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be like, no, this is stupid. You're an idiot. That's the wrong. This is not how sports debate shows work.
I really like your idea of ripping something away, tearing something away. That very, very much happens in these turnovers. And my vibe of the punch is more prolific towards the actual move that it does. So I feel like if you could somehow even combine these two cards together, we've maybe matched this this superstar in the perfect way.
I think that plays. Okay, look, I do not like Bo Nix. I do not think Bo Nix is a very good quarterback. I do not think that outside of his specific team context, he would be doing much that is worthwhile. But I cannot deny that in his team context, he is able to do just enough that this is a team that must be respected. Is he the reason it must be respected? No. Would it be worse if he was JJ McCarthy? Yes. That is why I am comparing Bo Nix with Diamondback. Extremely specific card. Not all that good unless it's surrounded by all of the right pieces. But if it is, there will be something that you have to respect there. Bo Nix, Diamondback, that's my comp.
I quite like it. I think that, man, I would call him Phoenix a lot, mostly.
I really hate the guy, but like,
I actually don't mind him too much. I think that he's all right. I don't know if I would put him quite so much as the fully carried by team as you're putting it. Now that Broncos team is pretty darn formidable, and I think that Bo Nix or non-Bo Nix behind the helm, if you find some other backup quarterback or something, how much worse are they? Man, I'm not quite so sure, but I think this comparison is pretty good. It's someone who is good with more people around them. That's a really interesting comparison.
Yeah, I think mostly the thing is, it would be easy for me to be like, Bo Nix sucks. I think he's terrible. Because I do, but that's the same as doing the Zombie Galacti thing, and it's hard for me to ignore that he has been performing. Like, to me, I think Bo Nix is basically Caleb Williams without the ceiling, where it's like, they're the same guy right now, except one of them could be better in the future, and it ain't Bo Nix. Like, that's sort of the thing that gets me about him, where it's like, I don't really see a path to him being any better than he is now, but you have to give credit in a league where there are just so many terrible quarterbacks. He's at least not that. Like, he kind of is, but not enough that it makes his team lose, which is way above several other quarterbacks I could name.
So I'm going to keep that Diamondback kind of like realm of what you're talking about, but I'm going to move it over to a different quarterback, Jalen Hurts. So Jalen Hurts, I think is a pretty solid quarterback. I think that he has a lot of flaws in his games, and I don't think that he has really the, I guess, killer edge. Sometimes it comes out, but he has a little bit of an inconsistency there. And I think that Diamondback is like surprisingly like weirdly strong, given like certain circumstances and with small things that are added in. And honestly, since Jalen Hurts has been around, he's just had this crazy strong winning team all around. Like being around Eagles fans, I was actually with some at the game, and it's just like the way they talk about things, it's like, everything's just kind of falling apart, but it just kind of keeps working. And
Yeah.
it's like Jalen Hurts is kind of just one of these glue cards where it's just this thing where it always feels like it's kind of falling apart, but kind of has it there together. So I kind of like what you're saying with Bonix, and I'm gonna move it over a little bit to Jalen Hurts and his situation.
I'm going to be a little bit nicer to Jalen Hurts than you are, I think. I'm going to say
Fair.
Jalen Hurts is Sage, which is this very specific card that has a very unique skill set, right? Like Jalen Hurts is a lot of the reason why the tush push works. Jalen Hurts does all of this stuff in very weird ways. He raises the floor of his team. And I do think it's notable that he's worse than he used to be. Like, this is not a guy you think of as falling off, but if you watch him run, you can tell he's slower. Like, he's a smart runner, but he doesn't have the speed he used to have. In much the same way, Sage used to be a very, very, very played card. Now, a little bit less. This is also a card that has the clutch gene. The best game I've ever seen Jalen Hurts play was the Super Bowl that they lost to KC. It was the best game I've ever seen him play. He has consistently performed in the playoffs in ways that genuinely kind of don't make sense with the kind of player he is. In much the same way, Sage shows up when you need to win a lane. An extremely potent lane winner that if you're asking it to just like be a big card in a lane, not nearly so good at that. Very contextual, but at the end of games has shown up and has demonstrated that ability.
I think that for me, the way that I guess contextualize Sage is maybe a little different than you, because I feel like Sage kind of like appeared and kind of like sprouted this new like way of playing Marvel Snap, or like expanded on a lot of strategies that were a little bit like behind, like things like kitty decks, or like so even bounce decks, like being able to use Sage as this kind of like huge, bigger, bursty thing. So I look at more contextualized that she kind of, or like Sage kind of came in and improved something. And I feel like Jalen Hurts kind of graduated into this winning culture and kind of has been something that's been there. I do really like the big moments comparison though. I think that one is really good about how Sage can really, like, sometimes it feels really bad. It's not something you really want to put up, but then it can have like these big huge moments. So I really like that side of the comparison though.
Yeah, sometimes she's a 3-2 and you're losing to, like, I don't know, the Bears because you can't score any points, right? Like that's sometimes Sage will do that, right? And sometimes Sage will be a 3-12 and win you the Super Bowl. And like that's just how it is. And it's a weird skill set, and it's not necessarily like, oh, played bad versus played good. It's just like certain situations when you get into the playoffs, it turns out having a guaranteed fourth down conversion, that's really important. And it's not it doesn't matter as much when you're playing against someone who's terrible. It just doesn't matter as much.
All right, I have a very interesting one here, and I'm interested to hear your take on my thoughts. So I am comparing the GOAT, the greatest quarterback, the greatest NFL player of all time, Tom Brady, with Cerebro. And immediately you might think like, oh, Cerebro's not the best card of all time. And I would agree with that. However, much like how Cerebro is more than just not the best card of all time, Tom Brady is more than just the GOAT. He also represents to me the ultimate build around player. He is the ultimate like centerpiece that you could possibly want in your offense to build around. And the Patriots showed time and time again that as long as they had Tom Brady as the center of their football team, they were able to build a world championship caliber team year in and year out. And Cerebro is the ultimate build around card in Marvel Snap. Not only does it, have many different modes that have appeared, Cerebro 2 and Cerebro 3 being the most, but you've seen some 4 and some 5 as well. But it also elevates these cards that see very little or no play outside of it because of its restrictions. We've seen Tom Brady build up all these like amazing talents and tight ends. Edelman, I think, is a great example of a player that never really shined anywhere else, but was one of like the most impressive wide receivers you've ever seen because he gelled so perfectly with Tom Brady. So for that reason, I think that Tom Brady is the ultimate build-around player to pair with Cerebro, the ultimate build-around card.
I feel like I got rage baited here. Like I feel like I'm about to turn into Stephen A. Smith and start calling this preposterous. This is preposterous. This is a preposterous comparison. It is insulting to Tom Brady. It is insulting to Julian Edelman somehow, a player I never thought I'd be offended on behalf of. This is not who Tom Brady is. I genuinely, when I think really hard about it, I don't know if there's a single Marvel Snap card that has the legacy that Tom Brady does. I don't even know if it's possible. I do know that it is not Cerebro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a card and I'm going to say, this is who I'm going to comp Tom Brady to. And everyone's going to be like, yeah, of course you did, you jerk. And that card is Thanos. Come on, man. 6 rings, 6 stones, consistently at the top of the metagame forever in a million different forms. When you talk about a build-around card, Thanos with the old Greenstone and Professor X, that's Brady in the first run, right? Then Thanos comes roaring back into the metagame with Mockingbird, Brady in the second run. And, of course, notably, has not been around for a little bit. That's retired Brady. That's what's happening here with Thanos. The run was immense. It was the card of Marvel Snap, and then he retired a little bit. That's my pitch for Brady.
I like the pitch for Brady. I could definitely see Tom Brady as Thanos in a different context. Now, calling Thanos the ultimate build-around card, I feel like that's something that you say because you could just throw any card that's in a vacuum really good into Thanos and you build around. That's how I'm building
you
around.
Can do
that's
that,
how I'm building around. I know you can. That's how what building around a card is. That's called just stuffing things in. Building around Cerebro is a build around card in the way that it creates things. It creates a beautiful thing, which is not what Thanos is, and that's okay. I think that your comparison to Thanos is great. I wish that you didn't hate my comparison to Thanos all that much because or my comparison to Cerebro all that much because I think that there's a different way to see these things, right? You're looking at things in a way that where the wave can only go one direction.
Specifically, the quibble I have is the idea that you have to work to build around Tom Brady. Because I just don't think that's true, right? Tom Brady was a lot of things across the course of his career. When he had Randy Moss, he was thrown for 4,800 yards. When he had a great defense, he was a game manager. He's not just one thing the way Cerebro is. When I think about building around Tom Brady, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of white slot receivers, right? Like there's a lot of Wes Welker, there's a lot of Julian Edelman, there's a lot of that guy, right? But it's not nearly so restrictive as that. And I feel like that open-ended ability to win in multiple ways over the course of a career, that's what takes me towards Thanos more than Cerebro. Or Cerebro, I think talk about like a Jalen Hurts. Right? Like, I think Cerebro could play for that. You talk about a Bo Nix. I think Cerebro could play for that. I think the restrictions on those guys are much higher. Like, it's a lot harder to get guys on that page.
I think you're looking at these restrictions in a different way than I am because I'm looking at Tom Brady as a player that can take these cards and these different players who might not be starting caliber without them and can elevate them to a level that can take on other people. So I would say that from the opinion of Thanos being, this build around card, because you can throw all these good things and it's like a little bit easier, I could see that comparison as well. But I also look at Tom Brady as someone who highlights and really makes something out of, whatever he needs. He's able to work with teams and mold them in the way that still allows them to win games in maybe different ways than other people. So I think that we're both looking at it a different way, but I think we have similar paths.
I can see it. I think that plays a lot more for me. I kind of think that I didn't expect either of us to be this kind to Tom Brady. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't expect there to be like 7 minutes of like, yeah, Tom Brady's amazing. But apparently that's what we did.
when you get to watch Tom Brady for,
Yeah.
2 decades of your life just constantly be the one who's, like, outclassing everyone. I mean, I don't know, like, I've always said, like, I try to just appreciate the greats when they're around, it's always been hard when they're the Packers quarterbacks because it's infuriating because I have to take the brute end of it, so those are the only ones I can't really appreciate. Get Rodgers out of here. I was really hoping to get
Yeah.
see him last week get beaten in Soldier Field, but he was scared, so
I
I
mean,
don't
he was
know.
hurt and then he got hurt again today. You got to like
Hurt.
when we talk about how bad quarterbacks are, like 40-year-old injured Rodgers is like they're wheeling him out there in a wheelchair because God forbid they have to play Mason Rudolph. It's like,
Yeah, man, it's
like
brutal.
Josh Allen, Arishem. Now, this is, I think, a comparison. Like to me, this is the comparison that got this video started. Like I made a comp of Zombie Galacti to Shador Sanders on Twitter, and people started asking me like, "What's X player? What's X player?" And the Josh Allen Arishem one is what really started getting my brain rolling on this because I think this comp really, really sticks because Josh Allen can do things that zero other people are capable of on a football field. And those are both good and bad things because at least once every few games, Josh Allen will throw a pick that would get you benched on any other team. Just abysmal, right? But everything he does that's good outweighs that to such a massive degree that he keeps showing up. He keeps being an elite card at the top level, no matter what. And I realize I'm pushing it by saying this considering the current state of the Bills, but no matter what garbage you put around him, he manages to make it better. He is a built-in floor, and frankly, the Bills have taken advantage of that by recruiting the worst wide receiver core on planet Earth. Shout out to Brandon Cooks. Come on. Like, if you want to, their whole wide receiver core is randomly generated cards. It is awful, an abysmal GM effort from them. They are much like Arishem is the only deck you will ever see someone play Warpath in or whatever. This is the only team that would ever put Jordan Poyer on the starting roster. It's just awful. Like it is just abysmally constructed. It works entirely around the power of Josh Allen. Josh Allen Arishem, Josh Arishem.
Josh Arishem. I love it. So another thing that I think me and you agree on a lot with Arishem is that the way to fight against Arishem is that you just have to play against a vibe. You just have to play a vibe that they're going to kind of play bigger things than you're expecting just over and over again. If you can think about it like a vibe and not worry about specific things too much, you can develop a plan and train to beat it. I feel like that's kind of how you have to deal with Josh Allen because he's just this monster of a human being with a howitzer for an arm that can just absolutely tear you apart, and the moment you're least expecting it can just push head forward, and it's like a linebacker charging full speed at you. I've loved Josh Allen from the moment he stepped on a football field. My fantasy football team used to be called Josh Allen is Very Good when I like way overdrafted him the year that he really popped off. I just love this guy. I love Arishem, and I think this is an A+ comparison.
I don't mean to inject too much Marvel Snap into this video, but I do think that you are very correct about playing against the vibe with Arishem, where it's like, this is a card that never does the exact same thing game to game, but does the same thing every game. It's never the same thing, but it's always the same thing. And I think that's a really important
Stuff just kind of happens.
Yeah, stuff just happens, but it always kind of averages out to the same space. And that is like a pretty important like people act like it's impossible to play against Arishem. It's really not. You just do things that make more points than they averagely do, and then you're going to beat them. And I think that kind of stuff is like that's sort of what Josh Allen represents, where it's like, if you are not on the level, you're going to get crushed. But if you are on the level, you can beat this.
All right. For my next comparison, I'm going to compare Merlin to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is one of those players who's come into the league and is just a absolute treat to watch this guy when he's healthy out on the field. He can move around like no one we've ever seen before. His elusiveness, the way that he can run downfield, but also the way that he can just kind of like command a game and go crazy. Reminds me so much of Merlin just kind of coming into this game and really igniting a lot of people's love of Marvel Snap with this card that you just play early and it just gives you all these like little tricks and things that you can do. It's a card that's found competitive play from the moment it showed up in countless different decks with countless different strategies as this just really, really easy to put down thing that does a lot of little tricks and small cool things that really kind of blow you away. So just from like a pure power perspective, I think he's a great comparison to Lamar Jackson, and the way that he's kind of come on and made this exciting way of playing Marvel Snap be so popular, like when Lamar Jackson came into the league.
I like this. I've got what I think is a better one that leans on a lot of the same context.
Interesting.
It's Werewolf by Night. Mobility. It's a card that came into the game and was immediately one of the best in the game. Immediately one of the best in the game. Had to get nerfed. But then it got buffed and it's like, oh, where's Werewolf by Night? Because I think a key thing about Lamar Jackson, and I want to be super clear here, I am an immense Lamar Jackson defender. I think he should have won MVP over Josh Allen.
100%.
I believe that. But at a certain point, I do think that he is a good enough player that the constant playoff failures are actually, I am starting to count them against him. I think there's a while where it's like, all right, you know, it's variance, it's whatever. Much like Werewolf by Night, always around the top decks. I don't know if it's ever been the best deck. Not since very early on. My analogy here is Werewolf by Night on release. That's Lamar Jackson 2018 MVP, right? Then you're like, okay, it's only uphill from here. And it's just kind of like he's gotten so much better. Like I can't stress this enough. The man had this is a running quarterback who had 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions last year. He's a running quarterback who's become one of the best passers in the NFL and yet has never been to a Super Bowl. And that outside of the Marvel Snap comparisons, he's a good enough player that I am starting to ding him for that at this point. Where it's like each year that this keeps happening, you're just like, all right, man, why was I defending you? Like, can you please just show up for once? And I think Werewolf is a lot like that, sort of like a very King of Tier 2 type card, where you know it's there, but it just hasn't all been put together. And in much the same way that like Lamar Jackson never shows up in the playoffs, and again, I also want to be clear, I don't necessarily think that's true. His win-losses, but wins are not necessarily a quarterback stat. He's had some pretty okay games in the playoffs. I don't want to be like it's all his fault. That said,
also he's Patrick Mahomes. You know,
right.
it's really hard to ding anyone in the AFC. And
it's hard.
Patrick Mahomes is just it's tough.
Yep.
The same. You could say the same thing about Josh Allen, right?
Absolutely true, right?
Yeah.
But you know, Werewolf by Night really bad when you draw it on turn 6. I'll go that way.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes Shang-Chi, and this is going to come off like Mahomes slander. It's not intended to be Mahomes slander, but this is going to be probably, God willing, the first year in a very long time that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are not going to win the AFC. And that is a kind of fall off that I think is similar to Shang-Chi, where this was maybe the card of Marvel Snap. Extremely dominant, shares the primary color red. A lot going for this comp, but largely what is going for it is that there has been a recent downturn. Now, the reason I think this might be a little unfair to Mahomes is if you look at every single advanced stat, he's like very clearly still like a top 3 quarterback in the game and shit's just going wrong. you look at that game they lost on Thursday and it's like, I don't know what else he could have done in that game. Like, it's like all right, that's just what happens to you now. And so I do think that like where Shang-Chi did noticeably get worse, but here's where the crux of the comp comes in. My argument is that the decline actually happened last year, and it was sort of covered up by people not noticing it or it being they were just winning a lot of close clutch games, and so nobody was like really registering it. But the decline in the Chiefs happened last year. They won a bunch of one-score games. Now they're losing their one-score games. In much the same way, Shang-Chi was kind of bad for 6 months before he got nerfed. And only after the nerf did people realize that he was bad. That's the like vibe comp that I'm trying to make here.
You know, I like it. I like the idea of Shang-Chi kind of like being this absolutely dominant one and kind of falling off. I think that's really good. I probably would have thought of Shang-Chi as a bit more of like a defensive player, just because in my eyes I see like the destruction or like something like that as something that's more
like a Von
around
Miller.
something I would look at a hit. But I actually I have a different comparison that I want to make to Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
I'm going to compare Patrick Mahomes to Victoria Hand, because you say that they've had a decline, and this year in the regular season, they're not doing as well, and there's a chance that they miss the playoffs. However, I have learned over the last 8 years to just never count the Chiefs out until they are out. 100%, because last year, just like you said, they did not look great. They didn't look great so much. I was saying it. They were kind of like showing like being frauds, and then they go to the playoffs, and then outside of the Super Bowl, where obviously they fell apart, they kind of like smashed through the playoffs, and like they looked really, really good still. So I think that, to me, I look at Patrick Mahomes as like the current, like still the guy to beat. Like I need to see someone knock him off in the playoffs. I know he was the 1 year with Burrow, but I need to see it happen, and I need to see it be after they're actually out, because I could just honestly never really count them out just yet.
I think that's a good angle for comparison. For full disclosure, V-Hand was a card that I was like down to compare to a lot of people who, like, I think if V-Hand wasn't the best deck right now, she'd be like a pretty good Joe Burrow comparison, where it's like always in the conversation, but never at the top of it, right? But right now, I think she's like literally as good as she's ever been, and I don't think it's very fair to say that about Joe Burrow. And so I found it hard to find an angle on her, because of her recent like massive resurgence post Deafening Chord. That was like a very difficult thing for me. So I'm glad that you got her in here, because this is a card that's like, there's like, if it weren't for that resurgence, there's a lot of good comps for. And now I think the way you took the angle on it being like, I'm not counting it out. I'm just, I refuse to actually do it. I think that's probably the best angle you can take on V-Hand right now. All right, I've bridged fully into slander. Meet Justin Herbert, aka If Man, aka Potential Man, the NFL's very own. Ooh, what if there was something good to do here? Ooh, what if this card was really good? I'm going with Invisible Woman, not for a gameplay comparison, not for any reason other than to say Justin Herbert disappears in the playoffs and is invisible, and that is the extent of the comparison.
Yeah, I feel like also just kind of one of those quarterbacks, like, it's always kind of good you never really think about. I don't know, just because there's never been that playoff success, like they're never really in the higher level conversations, just because he's never like really had that year where it's like, yo, like an MVP like caliber year, really. Like, he's been on the precipice a few times, but it's always just, especially in this era with all these like amazing quarterbacks who came into the league for the last 5 to 10 years, definitely someone who just kind of gets looked over and feels a little invisible, even though like the Chargers always have some level of hype.
It's kind of unbelievable, because like what'll happen is like he'll have one good game. This year it was the season opener versus the Chiefs, and you'll be like, oh wait, he can do that? That's amazing. He's got everything you need. Why isn't this guy Josh Allen? And then you watch the rest of the season, you're like, oh right. Right, my bad. And like, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't understand what it is that is missing here. And the other layer of the slander here is you never know what's under Invisible Woman, but it probably isn't good. So like that's my Justin Herbert comp. I've got one more sort of. This one's much less slandery. I just thought of it right now. So do you have one you want to throw at me?
Yeah, I have one interesting thing to add on to Invisible Woman too, because you kind of mentioned that aspect of from more of a gameplay perspective. Yes, like it'll randomly pop out of nowhere as this like really big thing, and then you kind of forget about it in a second. I feel like Invisible Woman does that just in the meta sometimes. Like there's sometimes randomly like Invisible Woman Killmonger is just like sick, and like people just start throwing in their decks, and then everyone like throws their hands up or like, when like the end of turn stuff was really popping off. You could use things like Invisible Woman as this like sneaky side thing that you can do. All right, for my last one, I had to get into the video. We are
Yep.
comparing Caleb Williams to Iceman. So Caleb Williams was the #1 overall pick last year. Last year on the Bears led us to a devastating 5-12 record. But if you didn't watch the games, you might not have seen the full extent of what those games looked like. There were so many games in there that Caleb Williams, through a sheer will with a terrible offensive line and the defense letting up points left and right, fought us back into so many of those games only to have them ripped away by either terrible coaching decisions or just a lot of different things against really good teams. And this year, we've seen the Bears come out on Caleb Williams' back and ice out game after game. Every single one of these one-score games that the Bears won this year. I swear we would have lost last year with Eberflus, but things have changed, and Caleb Williams now has the amazing nickname of the Iceman as he ices out games. One of my favorite players in the league, and I had to shout him out.
Here's the thing with Caleb is I really want him to be better than he is, right? Like,
Sure.
I think if you watch Caleb Williams and you're happy with him, I'm happy for you, right? You shouldn't be. You should expect more from this guy because he has every single tool you could possibly want. He is enormous. He is athletic. He has a cannon. He could be so much more than he is. He just has like this sort of fatal flaw of, for some reason, he doesn't set his feet and he skies 5 balls a game. And it's like, I don't understand why you aren't better than you are. He is a guy who I really think could, in a real way, be a top 10, top 5 quarterback if he just settles down. And so this is another sort of potential man pick, but my comparison for Caleb Williams is Cassandra Nova, because the floor is, pretty reasonable, right? Like, we're looking at Caleb Williams right now. I look at what he's doing right now. I think of that as the floor. I don't think he's going to get much worse than this. Shows up 3-6 on turn 3. You're fine. But the potential for this card is immense. We've seen this card absolutely rule metagames where big decks are part of the metagame. This is a card that can do so much insane game-winning stuff. The range here, 3-6, sure, but you're not playing it to be a 3-6. You're playing it to be a 3-17, right? And when this is a 3-17, like that's what you want. That's what you think this card can be. And so for me with Caleb Williams is like, I know in my heart and with my eyes that you are a better quarterback than Bo Nix, right? Like, I know that. You are a better quarterback than Bo Nix. I need you to go out there and take that next step. That is what I need from Caleb Williams, because I really do think that he could be something better than what he is. And what he is right now, I know you're probably going to get mad at this. He's somewhere from like 12 to 16 in the league. And he could be like a top 5 guy. And there's really potential for him to do that.
You're correct. I feel like you get a lot of these takes from Twitter. I feel like
these takes from watching Caleb Williams.
I don't think you've watched as much Caleb Williams that I have. I can promise you that.
And
I think that a lot of what happens with Caleb Williams and a lot of where some of the wrong things are and a lot of the advanced stats that'll pull away from them. I just don't think they really tell the whole picture of how this guy takes the field and how he goes out. I think that it will be one of these I mean, even last year, there was all these comparisons of like, him not even being as good as a guy in Washington.
Jaden Daniels.
His name right now. Jaden Daniels. And it's like, I think that Jaden Daniels had a better season last year, but you're right. I think that there is a process to Caleb Williams to grow with what he is. And I think that Ben Johnson is creating that process. I think that Ben Johnson, first of all, he went through his whole first year with the most poisoned playbook you've ever seen in your entire life.
The worst coaching in the league, yeah.
Just horrendous, right? So he goes through this, he gets a chip on his shoulder, and then Ben Johnson comes in and creates and like starts up a insanely elaborate offense. If you watch the Bears offense, there is some crazy stuff going on here this year. All kind of out of nowhere on this sophomore quarterback coming in. So I think that a lot of the misses and things that are going wrong are much less like these
You don't think it's a
things that
mechanics
he's
issue?
just throwing on his. I think that there's some mechanics issue to it. I think that a lot of the mechanics issues are fixed, and I think that Caleb Williams throws some of the craziest balls you've ever
Yes.
seen in your entire life.
Yes.
Day in and day out in all these crazy situations. So I think that I very strongly think that Caleb Williams is someone where if you look at the stats, they tell one picture, but if you watch him through all of the games, he's shown a completely different side of him. Now, I think that the Cass comparison is great, man, because I think the Cass is just one of those cards that is incredible. It's very powerful. It does multiple things. It hurts your opponents. And not only that, but much like Caleb Williams, Cass hurts you in ways that aren't quite so clear, as we can see by Cam Best disrespecting Caleb in this way.
I think I'm respecting him a lot, honestly, which is to say, like, I think he's a pretty good quarterback right now who has a chance to be a great one. And I think a lot of his issues that are holding him back are like fixable, right? Like, I don't want to say like he's always going to be like this, but I do think he has like platform issues. I do think he has like, this is like a trope. He's so good out of structure that you're just like, that's really, 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 really impressive. I need you to be 20% more Jared Goff. And if you can be Jared Goff with your legs, I would take that 10 out of 10 times, because I hate Jared Goff because he doesn't have legs, right? Caleb Williams has like this really high floor of like, he just doesn't get sacked very much, right? Like, because he is so able to avoid these sacks, because his legs, like, he has every tool you need for a guy who could be in that next tier up. He has not solved how to blow a team out yet, basically. He hasn't solved how to just be better than someone for 4 quarters.
He only beats them. He doesn't win by a
No,
lot.
like that actually like he has solved how to play really good 4th quarters. That's why the Iceman comparison is there, right? Like, he's clutch, right? He just hasn't done that on a consistent basis. And if he does, that is what makes you a great quarterback, because he can absolutely go out there and play great quarterback, but he has not played, and I'm serious when I say this, one single full game of like, wow, you were a great quarterback for all 4 quarters. He just hasn't done it. And if he is able to do that, he could be a great quarterback. I think he's a pretty good quarterback that is in the process of growing, and the potential is really high there because, again, like, I'm really biased towards quarterbacks that have big arms and get to do, and Caleb has it. Dude. Yes, like Caleb has it. Like, he has everything you want. I just need him to stop overthrowing DJ Moore 5 times a game. Like, I just need that to stop happening. Like, it's all I need from the guy.
Yeah, fair, man. I mean, I'm excited to see him get better. I think we both agree he's going to be a very great, very, very great quarterback. I just maybe think he's a little bit farther down the track than a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think he's NFL average right now with potential to be significantly above that. Earl Thomas was the fulcrum upon which the Legion of Boom swung. The Legion of Boom was perhaps the last great, like, sort of, not necessarily scheme agnostic, but like before defenses started doing all of these like half field coverages and things like that, the Legion of Boom was the last defense that was a great defense that played you straight up. And they were able to play you straight up because Earl Thomas at free safety simply covered more space than any other player was capable of covering. People will talk about Richard Sherman. People will talk about Cam Chancellor. People will talk about a lot of other players on that defense. That scheme doesn't work without a guy in the center who can cover the way Earl Thomas could cover. It simply does not work. Mr. Fantastic is much the same. When you play an ongoing deck, you talk about Moonstone and Mystique and all of those duplicators and all of that. But who's the guy that's making it possible for you to win 3 lanes with your combo? It's Mr. Fantastic. Who is the guy who is providing the range? Mr. Fantastic. Who is covering you? Mr. Fantastic. That is my argument. Mr. Fantastic, Earl Thomas.
Love it, man. And he's got the big arms to reach up and get interceptions. Is the other part of that.
All right, this last one is like purely for slander purposes. Purely for slander purposes, Lane Kiffin is Titania, however you want to say it, purely disloyal, absolute rat, will betray you at the slightest opportunity. For those who are unaware, Lane Kiffin has left many jobs unceremoniously, most recently, as of the time of recording, left Ole Miss to go coach at LSU while trying to effectively blackmail or coerce Ole Miss into letting him coach the playoff run, despite the fact that he would be leaving with many of the players and coaches on their team to LSU, effectively saying, I should get to be the coach of LSU and also the coach of Ole Miss at the same time. Absolutely do not trust this man. Do not trust Lane Kiffin. You do not trust Titania. But Lane Kiffin is also a brilliant offensive mind. Undeniably one of the better coordinators, one of the better offensive minds in college football, maybe in football, period. Titania is a card that you cannot trust, but sometimes you can use that lack of trust in order to do great things, like clog your opponent's lane. In a similar way, Nick Saban used Lane Kiffin's offense to bring Alabama into the modern age of offense and stop running a game plan that ran the ball 40 times a game. Lane Kiffin can be useful. You cannot trust him.
I think why are they allowed to do that? Do you understand anything about how this is even possible? Because I don't know too much about this, but like it seems like something there should be any rule available to not have this happen, right?
Who would make the rule is the thing. Because it's like the NCAA, if college football makes the rule, right? What's going to happen is someone's going to sue about it. Because who are you, an unofficial body, to make a rule that limits my employment? In much the same way that the players sued about that because they were being compensated as students and not as like parts of a multi-million-dollar business. So what'll happen is if you try to make a rule about that, everyone will just sue about it, and then none of the teams who want the good coaches, because all the good coaches be like, well, I'm not signing that clause. And so they won't go to a team if I don't have that clause in there. And so there's just effectively no meaningful way for anyone to stop this crap from happening every single year.
That's crazy, man. That's why I don't watch college football. There's too many moving parts.
Yeah, I it's probably not a good look for college football to have this be the biggest story on like rivalry week. We got to talk about Lane Kiffin. The ESPN had a reporter.
So they're just gonna have a random different coach just pop on for the playoffs, right?
Yeah. His name is Pete Golding, and he used to have Will Anderson drop in coverage on third down. He is not good at coaching.
If they win, it's gonna be the most legendary run of all time. Can you imagine?
It would be really cool. Unfortunately, their coach is Pete Golding, who is you don't know who that is. He is like one of the worst coaches I have ever seen. He's their current DC. Their defense, notably, god awful. Like, this is a guy who has never been top half at basically anything ever. But I will give them credit. It's kind of what you have to do to save your program, is get a coach appointed basically immediately who has relationships with the players, because otherwise this asshole is taking all your players and your coaches to another team right before you make a playoff run. So shout out to college football.